Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're decoding two fundamental patterns that shape pretty much all life on Earth. We're going to reveal the hidden rules that govern where species live and, where they thrive. Okay, let's dive right in. And that brings up the central mystery, right? All this incredible biological richness isn't just random chaos. There's a hidden order to it, a set of patterns that ecologists have been trying to figure out for centuries. And today, we're going to look at two of the biggest ones. All right, so let's get into the first major clue. It's actually one of the most well-known patterns in all of ecology, and it's tied directly to the geography of our planet. It's called the latitudinal gradient. And really, it's pretty simple. As a general rule, the closer you get to the equator, the more different kinds of species you're going to find. Then, as you travel north or south towards the poles, that species count starts to drop off, and sometimes it drops off dramatically. Let's make this feel a little more real. We're going to take a quick trip, just following bird species. We'll start in the tropics, in a country like Colombia, which is right there on the equator. So, take a guess. How many species of birds do you think live there? Get this, an incredible 1,400 species. I mean, just pause and think about that. That is a massive concentration of bird life, all packed into one country. Okay, now let's travel north with our imaginations. We're leaving the tropics and heading to a temperate region like New York, which sits at about 41 degrees north latitude. The environment totally changes and, well, so does the species count. It just plummets. We're down to only 105. That's a drop of over 90%. I mean, that is a huge, huge difference. But we're not done yet. Let's keep going. We're going to head all the way up to Greenland at 71 degrees north, way up inside the Arctic Circle. And the number drops again, down to just 56 species. This just perfectly shows the gradient, right? We went from 1,400 near the equator to 105 in the temperate zone, all the way down to just 56 at the pole. Wow! And look, this isn't just some weird thing that only happens with birds. Not at all. The exact same rule applies to plants. A tropical forest in Ecuador can have 10 times more plant species than a forest of the exact same size in the American Midwest. It's just a fundamental rule of life on our planet. So, naturally, this brings up the big question. Why? I mean, what is so special about the tropics? Well, ecologists have been working on this, and they have a few key ideas. Okay, so there are three main theories on the table. First up, evolutionary time. Unlike places that went through big ice ages, the tropics have been pretty stable for millions of years. This gave evolution a long, uninterrupted runway for all sorts of new species to pop up. Second, the climate is way more constant. There's less crazy seasonal change, so the environment is more predictable. This lets species get super specialized, and they can coexist without competing so much. And third, it's just about pure energy. The tropics get hit with more direct sunlight, which means more plants, which means a bigger base for the entire food web. It can just support more life. So that was our first global rule. Now let's zoom in a bit and look at our second major pattern. This one shifts our focus from the whole globe down to a more regional level. It's all about the relationship between how big an area is and how many species you can find there. And this whole idea really got its start with the legendary German naturalist Alexander von Humboldt. While he was on these incredible explorations in South America, he noticed something really profound. The more ground he covered, the more species he found. But the rate of finding new species eventually started to slow down. Now, if you plot this relationship on a normal graph, you get this curve. But here's where scientists get clever. If you change the scale of the graph to be logarithmic, where, say, the space between 10 and 100 is the same as the space between 100 and 1,000, that curve magically turns into a perfect straight line. And straight lines are way, way easier to describe with a simple equation. And that straight line gives us this tidy little equation. Now, don't get scared off for the math here, I promise. The only letter you really need to care about is z. Z represents the slope of that line. Just think of it as a number that tells us exactly how quickly we find new species as we explore a bigger and bigger area. So, what's the big deal about this z value? Why do we care how steep the line is? Well, that's where the real secret is hiding. The steepness of that line tells you something really important about the ecosystem you're looking at. What's so fascinating is that for most regions, doesn't matter if you're looking at plants in Britain or birds in California, that z value is weirdly consistent. It's almost always somewhere between 0.1 and 0.2. But something wild happens when you zoom way out. If you analyze a massive area, like a whole continent, that line gets way steeper, and the z-values jump up to between zero point 0.6 and 1.2. So why the huge difference? And just to give you a concrete example, when scientists looked at fruit-eating birds and mammals across all the tropical forests on different continents, they found the slope, that z-value, was a very steep 1.15. So what does the steeper slope actually mean in plain English? It means that when you're looking at a huge continent-sized area, adding just a little bit more land gives you a massive number of new species. The diversity just explodes much more rapidly at these bigger scales than it does when you're looking at a smaller local region. So there you have it, 2 of the planet's hidden rules for biodiversity. The latitudinal gradient tells us where to find the most species. Get yourself near the equator. And the species-area relationship tells us that the bigger the area, the more species it's going to hold. And that relationship actually changes depending on the scale you're looking at. You know, these elegant patterns are the result of millions and millions of years of evolution, creating this rich, complex, and beautifully ordered biological world we live in. And this leaves us with a final and pretty critical question. What happens when our own activities start to rapidly break up habitats, shattering these fundamental rules in less than a single century?